Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. All right, my friends, today I am bringing you some widow/widower RECS. A widow is a female who's lost their husband and a widower is a male who's lost their wife or husband. Either way. I absolutely love this trope. And I know I maybe shouldn't because it usually has a lot of pain with it. Sometimes the spouse who died, we don't miss them, particularly in like historical romances. But usually it is a very sad thing. But what it leads to is usually a single parent. Again, not all of them. I have about like 3 or 4 of these that there isn't children left behind, but in a good amount there usually is. So that usually leads to a single parent. And I love single moms and single dads, which I just made a video about that recently. So I tried to have some books that aren't like a crossover with that, but some of them do. So we're going to get into this, and I think you'll also see that 4 of these books are in my 6-star category of favorites of the year. So you can also see that I love them. Also, my favorite book of all time besides the Outlander series is The Takeover, which is in the first video I did because I have made this one before. You can find that one up there. And I think I've picked all books that aren't in that one because I made that one a while ago. So let's get started with these. I'll try not to go too far in depth with some of them, but we know how it goes. So the first one I want to mention is Restore Me by J.L. Seeger. This one is about our heroine, Sloane, who recently lost her husband, and she is trying to get on with herself. She is feeling a bit depressed. She is touch-starved. She had a very good relationship with her husband, and she's just feeling very like desolate. She's trying to move on. And she ends up being put in this situation where she's going to be working with her late husband's friend who she has disliked for many years, but they work in like, I believe he's a contractor and she's like an interior designer or just somehow like that. They both are going to be working on this property together. And she's always thought he hated her, and he's really been keeping up a lot of this facade because he thinks that she's beautiful and wonderful and really like wants to get with her. But we'll see that unravel. So he's turned that frustration into like hate against her or like to keep her away type of scenario. But what ends up happening is that she ends up being a bit vulnerable with him and explaining some of what she's feeling. And he offers that instead of her going to find a stranger, she can work out some of her stuff with him. And they will do sexy things together, get her some of that touch that she needs, and help them move on. So Restore Me, this one is very beautiful, very emotional. This is the Dark and Quirky edition. I was able to get a copy of this on Mercari for not an arm and a leg. And I just think that it's gorgeous, honestly. It's so beautiful. So I have like a signed copy here. So yeah, this one definitely angsty, definitely emotional. And again, as comes with losing a spouse, like a good amount of these ones are going to be pretty emotional. Again, not everyone is sad for losing their partner in this, as we'll see. Next up, we have a historical. As I said, there's a couple of those in here. And this one is a case of the heroine definitely does not miss her husband. And she actually has quite a bit of freedom now that she's lost her husband. And she's not really looking to give it up anytime soon, but she is looking to have some sex that she likes. So we have The Duchess Takes a Husband by Harper St. George. This is the 4th book in the Gilded Age Heiress series. I do suggest you don't necessarily read this one first. You don't have to read it last, but I don't know, I wouldn't read it first because we see this heroine actually getting married, and she becomes kind of this cautionary tale for the other women in this series because she is forced into a marriage with someone for society's sake, for position's sake, and she is in an abusive marriage. Now, he was mostly very like, he put her down a lot. He made her feel small. He liked to control like what she was able to eat and those things. So he's a very abusive, very domineering man. And now that he's gone, she wants to experience some things for herself. So she ends up approaching her like friend's brother named Jacob, who has a club that he owns. And so he has access to all beautiful women, and he really thinks that she's very beautiful, but he would never mess with her because of, you know, the connection to his brother and friends and stuff like that. But she beseeches him that like, I want to learn about sexual pleasure in a safe space, and I trust you based on our mutual connections to do that. And so he does very reluctantly get into this with her, but he's like, we can't have any feelings because I'm not going to marry anyone. It's that kind of thing. But, you know, this book is called The Duchess Takes a Husband, so, you know, we'll see what happens with that. All right, then we have a contemporary MM romance. Okay, so we have You and Me. This is another one of my 6-star books. Or, I mean, this one is one of my 6-star books. I have a few of those to share today. So this one is actually a, like, gay awakening type story. So our hero in this one, his name is Luke, I believe, and he is a single dad of a teenager, and his wife had died recently, and he's been keeping a secret about how she died from his son, and he feels very disconnected from his son, and he's just bleeding inside because of that. He adores his son, and his wife had actually driven a wedge between him and his son without him really noticing it. And now his wife is gone. He feels so lonely. He feels separated from his son, and he realizes that time is running out. His son will soon be old enough to go to college and leave, and he's afraid that when his son leaves, he'll never want to see him again. And that just devastates him. So then he decides to go to a booster club meeting, basically, which it's parents of the athletes who help with like team dinners and help with like different scenarios where they need like volunteers and stuff for that. And so reluctantly Luke is getting involved in this, and Landon, who is a single dad as well, who's out and gay and out there and everyone knows, and his son is like a leader on the team, and they have a beautiful relationship, and Luke is so like envious of that. He really wants a part of it, and Landon really takes Luke under his wing, helps him be a part of the boosters, helps him, you know, be a part of that. And because Landon's son is such great friends with Luke's son, it gives Luke an opportunity to be around his son more, and it's just really beautiful. And through all the time he spends with Landon, he starts to fall for him, and he's never had those feelings for, let alone like another man. Like, they're deeper than any feelings he had for his wife either. So this, of course, was a beautiful story. It was a 6-star read for me. I can't wait to reread this one as well because it was just fantastic. All right, then we have the 6-star read of like the year. Like, for real, I love this so much. We have Forever Your Rogue by Erin Langston. I've talked about this book ad nauseum, so we won't go into it too much today, but this one is about Cora, Lady Dane, who has 2 small children. She was recently widowed. Her husband left her children under shared guardianship between some of his family members and hers. And so she just feels absolutely like betrayed by that he would he didn't even know his like daughter's own birthday, and like just was so like absent and everything. And Cora had such big dreams of a beautiful marriage, and then to be married to a man who just really didn't give a shit was absolutely devastating. So she doesn't really care about romance anymore. She only cares about her children and keeping them. And there's a threat of these relatives trying to take her kids away and basically be in control of her son's like inheritance. That's really what they want. And so her brother, Gavin, is a barrister, and he's trying to help her. And one of the ways they could protect him is if she were to be married and have a like new like man in the picture, but she doesn't want to be put under the control of another man, and she doesn't know where she would find one even. So there is a man in her life named Nathaniel Travers, who owes her a debt for a certain favor that she did him a while ago. And now he's a bit of a ne'er-do-well. He's a bit of trouble. He doesn't really want this burden, but she's like, you owe me. And the way you're going to pay me back is you're going to come and pretend to be my fiance until I can convince these people to back off. Now, she doesn't quite think that all the way through, because it's like, you know, how far are you going to have to push this relationship? Because what if you break it off? Then will you be back where you started? So who's to say? But this is a absolutely swoony romance. I love when a man falls not only for the woman, but for the children as well. These children are so cute. They're so little. And it's just like heartbreaking to see how they were ignored by their father. And it's beautiful to see the way they bloom under the attention of this new man who he doesn't think he'll want anything to do with children, but just finds himself totally drawn in by them. And it's wonderful. Of course. Like, am I going to say anything less about Forever Your Rogue? If you haven't read it yet, what have you been doing? What have you been doing? Even if you don't think you're a historical romance person, that's one I would suggest you try. Like, really, truly. All right. We have one more historical to share, and then we'll switch back to some other ones. So we have Poppies and Silk by Tanya Fisher. So this one is a young widow named Poppy Daniels. Well, I guess she isn't too young anymore, but she is a seamstress, and she is the daughter of a sex worker. And at the beginning of this book, we see her when she's a teenager, and her mother is in some trouble, and she tries to sell her to pay for the debt. Now, Poppy ends up escaping, but the cost is that her mother is killed for not paying the debt. So she feels very guilty about that. But she ends up getting taken in by this pastor and his wife. His wife is pretty ill, and also his son is ill too. And she ends up becoming a caretaker to the wife. This is all the prologue, okay? This is all the prologue. She ends up being taken in by this pastor and his wife and becoming a caretaker to the woman. And when the son comes home from the hospital, he was at like a long-term like care place or whatever. It was called an asylum, but wasn't a mental asylum. There was other purposes for asylums then. And they actually fell in love, and she married him. But now when we start the story proper, both the vicar's wife, or I want to call him a vicar, the pastor's wife and her husband, they've both died. And he wants to kind of move on with his life. His wife was sick for many years, so he, hasn't had really any joy or happiness in his life. And so Poppy and him kind of divide the assets of the home. He gives her something to start with, and he goes about his life, and she wants to start fresh. So she goes to Dogwood, which this is actually book 2 in a series. These ones, you could start with either one just because of how they're barely connected. Really, the only connection is Dogwood, because the first one is called Letters to Dogwood. But she moves to this where she's planning to kind of help with a friend that she'd written letters with back and forth, and they're going to be making clothes there, be a seamstress. And she very soon meets Saul Williams, who... This is another connection to the first one. He is a farm worker. He's a ranch worker for the hero of the first one. And he meets Poppy when he comes into town, and they begin this flirtation and eventually a romance with them. There is also a mystery element that's happening in this one. There are some women that are going missing. There is some, there is some content warning for sex trafficking, childhood trauma, kidnapping, gun violence, because this is a Western in kind of its true sense. But it was also very heartwarming, and I loved Saul and Poppy. But yeah, this one has a very tense like ending to it, so be prepared for some of that going on. All right, then there is a recent read of mine, and I won't talk too much about this one because there is a lot of spoilers around this one, but it isn't a spoiler to say that the hero is a widow in this one, a widower. So we have The Lovely Return by Carrie Ann Cole. This just came out a few days ago, and our hero, I think his name is Alex, if I remember right, he lost his wife, and on like their first anniversary, she died in childbirth. And now it's years later, and it's about a connection that he has with a neighborhood girl through the years. And eventually she is best friends with his daughter, and his daughter has a lot of like angst and like anger towards him for the way that he kind of disappeared after the mother died. So there's a lot of working through that, but this is a forbidden age gap. It also, without me explaining anything, like reincarnation is one of the things included in this. That is on the back of the book, so not spoiling anything there. But yeah, this one was really intense. It was very emotional, and it was really beautiful. And it was nice to visit Carrie and Cole again after so many years. It's been a long time since I've read anything of hers. All right, then we have Broken Dreams. This one also just came out last week. This is book 2 in the Whitlock family series. This one is about, let's see if I remember, it is about, nope, I don't, it's the Whitlocks. There is Addison and, can't remember the hero's name. It is gone. Yep, can't remember his name. But they are actually both without their spouses, and they both have a 3-year-old child. So this is a widow and a widower romance, and it is the book that inspired this video, because I was like, oh, I want to do widower romances, and this one fits both. So yes, they both have a 3-year-old child. He has a boy, she has a girl, and they're both going to the same like nursery school / daycare. And when his son is kind of throwing a fit about going, her daughter kind of calms him and becomes his friend. And so these two like meet through that and become friends. And when they both end up needing like a fake partner, well, she's looking for a real partner, but he needs a fake girlfriend because he's not planning to get fully involved with someone again. He's not ready. He doesn't think his heart is ready to do that. And our heroine, she is looking for someone, but she needs someone like right now for a wedding that she has to go to, where she wants to appear like she is doing okay. And so they agree to help each other out, and then they become like friends with benefits, and it goes from there. But really cute interactions with both of their children in this one. I loved that. And also the family relationships are wonderful. I love family series like this for sure. All right, then there's another 6-star read of mine, which is Worth the Fall, sorry. The series has a bunch of names. Worth the Fall by Claudia Connor. This one is a widow with 4 children and 1 on the way. I always forget how many kids everybody has, but either way, she's pregnant and she has a bunch of kids, and she's on vacation with her kids, and her husband had died only like 6 months ago. And our hero Matt, he is on vacation, but he is still in active duty, like special forces, and he's on like a leave. And so they happen to be at the same like resort, hotel resort place in Virginia Beach. And he meets her and just is kind of taken with her and her kids. And she doesn't understand why this single hot hunk is spending time with her, but he really is just like infatuated with her and her children and just thinks she's so strong and beautiful, and he falls for her. And our heroine, like, she has a lot of abandonment issues. We learn about what all of them are. I think they're all valid issues to have. I don't think she's being like unreasonable about them. And so, you know, falling for someone who is active duty and is going to be leaving her regularly is something that is going to be a big hurdle for them. But the way Matt is with these babies, oh my gosh, get your tissues ready because he's perfect. Okay, he's perfect. And speaking of ones that are going to tug at your heartstrings, the final recommendation that I have here is Unbreak My Heart by Nicole Jacqueline. This was a book that I probably would never have read if a patron didn't pick it for me, so thank you so much to my friend who picked this book. This one is also a military hero. Wow, I had like 3 of those in a row. And he also has 3 kids, and 1 was on the way when his wife is in a car accident. And her best friend happens to be the one who's like always there when he's on tours. And he also doesn't like her. There's so much connection throughout the story. I won't go into all of it, but she actually knew him before he knew her friend, who then he married and has had these babies with. And when his wife is in the accident, she dies. The child survives. So now he has 4 kids and he's still active duty. And so this friend, she's basically their mother whenever he has to go on tours. And now it is a year later, and so it's that baby's 1-year birthday, as well as the 1-year anniversary of the death of his wife. And these two, through some circumstances, end up hooking up. And he's really angry about that, and she ends up pregnant. So now that's where the story is at. This one, the hero will make you want to kick him in the nuts. I don't know what else to say. Like, I wanted to kick him in the nuts so many times, but I thought it had a beautiful grovel. And again, the way that this woman feels for the children and the way she misses her friend and just all the complicated emotions that get put into this. This one put me through the ringer. I went through the ringer for this story, but it was also just the kind of hurt that in the end is like transformational, because you're just like, what did I live through? What did I live through? So there you go, friends. Those are my widow and widower recommendations. Let me know some of your favorites. Again, I already have done a video of this, so I'll have it tagged up there with some older recommendations. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this. Thank you to all my friends who support me here. If you'd like to support the channel, I do have links to my Patreon, my Ko-fi, my channel memberships. That's all down below. And we'll see you next time. Bye.